Hey guys, welcome back to the channel Everyday Carry with Everyday Guys. So today's video is going to be all about red dots, particularly red dots on pistols, particularly the Sightmark Mini Shot M-Spec. So I want to accomplish a few things with today's video. One, I'm going to give a comprehensive review of this red dot on a pistol. Those of you who follow my channel do know that a while back I did a first impressions review of this red dot. I've had the dot on my firearm for about 3 or 4 months now. Put about 1200, just over 1200 rounds through it. There's a lot of tests you're going to see, impact tests, one-hand manipulation, accuracy, all those things. So that's one of the things I want to accomplish in this video. Another thing is I want to explain how red dots are used. If you are new to red dots, if you haven't had a lot of experience with them, a lot of people only pick up a red dot at like a shooting fun day where they see it for the first time and they don't know how to use it and they get a negative impression of it. So I'm going to explain to you how to properly use a red dot, and I'm going to give you a bit of history about it, and we're going to go further from there. So I do want to achieve a couple of things with this video. It's going to be a bit long. There's going to be some cool B-roll and test footage in the video, so stay tuned. It's worthwhile watching. So first and foremost, to kick things off, I need to explain exactly what a pistol mounted red dot is and why it works and why maybe it won't work for some people. So basically all this is an emitter. I don't know if you can see just at the back, there's like a little red light. Before we go further, guys, don't worry, the firearm is empty and safe, and so is the mag. There's no live rounds in the vicinity. A pistol red dot is effectively a glass pane, right, with a red emitter emitting a light onto that pane, and you look through it and you see sort of the reflection, if you will, of that light. And that is about it. Obviously there's more dynamic materials involved, but on the base of it, that's kind of what it is. Now, why would you use this? So we've got to go into a bit of a history lesson, so just bear with me on this, okay? Back in caveman days, when man fought to survive from the saber-toothed tiger or whatever it was, when he was being attacked, he would be under a great deal of stress, and that would affect his ability to see. Stress, vision, stress, focus, whatever you want to call it, okay? He'd get tunnel vision, and what his brain then said, well, you know what, if you are going to do this, we're going to need to focus on the most important thing in life right now, which is the threat, the thing that's trying to kill you. So for however long human beings have been fighting to survive, they have been what's called threat focusing. So to put that into perspective for those who don't have a red dot on their pistol, human beings have been threat focusing for longer than iron sights have existed, okay? It is more ingrained in our DNA to threat focus. Now, obviously with the advent of firearms, someone needed to put a tool on there so that you could shoot where you want to shoot. And some clever people came up with an idea, and they said, let's put a metal bar on the front and two at the back, and maybe put some dots on there, and two within a varying degree of acceptability. If this dot is lined up like this, and this one is lined up like that, and is equal height, the round is going to go pretty much where those three dots are lined up at, okay? Now, in order to be able to successfully do that, you need to focus on it. Now, you can't, our stress focal range is very small, okay? You can't focus on your rear side, front side, and the threat. We just don't have the ability to do it yet, you know. What they decided was we need to focus on the most important of those three dots, which is often the front sight. All of your sights, iron sights, are important, but the front sight is the one people tend to focus on because that's pretty much a very good gauge of where that round is going to go. So what they said is stop focusing 100% on your target. You've got to sort of divert your focus onto three focal planes. Primary is front sight, and then secondary is target and rear sight. Now that's something really difficult and against evolutionary design to do, right? The more you do it, the more through neuroelasticity, your mind begins to say, well, I can do this. And now I don't even think to do it, right? So when you aim automatically without even thinking, you focus on your front sight and you got a blurred image of your target. So it is something that can be done, but is it the best way to do it? So a few decades ago with rifle shooting, people decided, you know what, let's put an optic on there so that we can focus on the target. It's easy for tracking because rifle shooting, especially assault rifle shooting in a sort of military construct is very difficult because you're very rarely shooting a stationary target. And so to track a moving target while focusing on your front sight and the target is about 50 meters away, that becomes really difficult. Now, what a red dot or an optic does is it allows you to look through that glass, through this glass, right, at the actual target. Okay, and so the way this almost looks, if you've never looked through a red dot at all or correctly, it looks as if a laser has been painted on your target if you're tracking the target correctly. That's what it should look like. Your dot should look like it's physically on your target's body. If you are using a red dot, right, and at any point you have your rear sight, the actual frame of the dot, or your front sight in focus, you're using your dot incorrectly. Unless, of course, your bad guy's right up against the front of your firearm, then everything will be in focus, but you're still focusing on your threat. What you need to be focusing on is what you're trying to shoot. And if you do that, the way red dots are designed, everything comes into sort of just this perfect targeting mechanism. So that is how to use a red dot. Now, why is it beneficial? Well, it's simple. You're talking about one focal plane versus effectively three with irons, okay, which is target, front, and rear, with varying degrees of importance, obviously. And also, you've got that whole evolutionary thing. So from personal experience, I've been hijacked, and I can tell you, it would take a lot for me to have taken my eyes off the people attacking me, and adjust my focus. Now, obviously, like I said, with practice, you will do it subconsciously, but it's still not, in my opinion, the way we are supposed to be doing things. Remember, guys, everything on the channel is an opinion, nothing is a recommendation. Okay, so the next thing, how do you zero your dot? Now, I've heard a lot of people say that you've got to zero it so that your dot in your window sits directly on your front sight. Okay, so you turn the little screws for elevation and windage, which you have right there and right there, and you set your dot on your front sight. Now, for the purpose of this video, when I say dot, I mean the Sightmark Mini Shot M-Spec. It is the only dot I have. It's the only dot I've spent a reasonable amount of time with. So when I say red dot or dot, I'm talking about the Sightmark Mini Shot M-Spec. Okay. Now, I did not zero my red dot like that. I zeroed my red dot for 20 meters. So what that means is at 20 meters, point of aim and point of impact should be on each other, okay? Now, with the red dot, you have to consider distances. Distances becomes important, and I think you should just do it anyway, actually. Know how far apart it is from one end of a car to the other, to another end of another car parked close together. Know the furthest distance in your house. Know the length of your passage. That sort of thing. It's important. Now, the reason I chose 20 meters is because I have 18-meter long passage, or I had an 18-meter long passage until I moved into a new place. So I zeroed it for that distance. I just rounded off to 20. But 20-25 is a good idea of where to zero it to. Now, can you be accurate up close if you zero your red dot like that? Well, take a look at this footage of me testing the Sightmark Mini Shot M-Spec at 5, 7, 10, and 15 meters. So there you go. So that is a reasonably good level of accuracy. Now, I'm not the greatest shooter. I'm sure a better shooter could achieve better results, but I'm very happy with that results. So even though I'm zeroed for 20 meters, everything 20 meters and closer, I'm going to get a very good degree of accuracy with my red dot. Personally, I would not advocate slaving your front sight and your red dot, or your red dot to your front sight. Now, there is another term that's popularly used called co-witnessing. Now, I personally believe that slaving and co-witnessing are two separate things. Slaving is basically putting your red dot on your front sight no matter what. It's just on your front sight, okay? Co-witnessing is being able to see your rear and front sight while looking through your window. Now, obviously, I've got my window in front of my rear sight, so I'll obviously be able to see my rear sight, but I should be able to use my front sight as well. So your front sight has to be high enough so that if your dot goes down for whatever reason, you can still use your iron sights. That is what I consider co-witnessing. For me, where your front sights are in relation to where your dot is should be two separate things. Okay, but you do it how you want to do it. I'm just telling you how it works for me. As a side note, when you're shooting and you're thinking of accuracy, consider what you're trying to achieve. Now, the next question that comes on from not zeroing my dot to my front sight is, well, how do you know where to put the dot in the window? Okay, and it's kind of a valid question because if you look through this window, right, there's absolutely no point of reference on the window. It's a clear window with a red dot on it. And so, how do you know where to put the dot? And I'm almost tempted to say it doesn't really matter where you put the dot. Given that your dot is zeroed correctly, you should achieve a relatively high level of accuracy regardless of where the dot is in that window. Have a look. So guys, one of the big questions about red dots is, do you have to get that red dot directly in the center of your window? And obviously, ideally you do, but a lot of people say, well, there's no point of reference. It's a clear window. How do I know when my dot is directly in the center? And obviously that's where co-witnessing comes into play. But something I do want to show you is what happens if your dot is at the far extremities of your window. How much are you going to miss given that your firearm is correctly zeroed? So what I'm going to do is my first shot, I'm going to take with a dot where I consider dead center. That should be a fairly accurate shot. The next 4 shots, I'm going to put the dot in the top right-hand corner of my window, the bottom right, the top left, and the bottom left. Now I have a rounded window, so I'm going to use my sort of my discretion as to where exactly top left and top right is, but it's going to be in the extremities of the window. So let's see what that looks like. Okay, let's go and have a look. So my first shot was this one right here, and I'd say we're looking at about 2 fingers off dead center. And then as you can see, these are the rest. So I wasn't overly happy with that test, and something I didn't mention in the video is, once I took my first shot, I was then sort of aiming for the whole of my first shot. So I did another test similar, but a bit more visually descriptive. So have a look at this one where each piece of blue paper represents the extremity of where I'm putting the dot in the window, which with obviously the center one being in the center of the window. Take a look. Now, a vital thing with a red dot is it has to be incredibly robust. Now, the Sightmark Mini Shot M-Spec is made out of aircraft grade aluminum with a steel shroud over the top. Can you see? I mean, it's very, very thick. The glass is also really thick. I don't know how to explain how thick it is, but it feels to the hand about that thick. I don't think it really is that thick, but it's a very thick glass. Okay, so your glass is solid, and the shroud on this comes forward of the glass. Can you see that? So anything that gets knocked up against the front hits the shroud, and not the glass. That's very important. Also, with structure, you know, a hard and a soft metal is good. So you got your hard steel metal with your soft aluminum on the inside. It's good for shock absorption. Now I'm going to get to a drop test a little later on. Stay with me. Now, the reason these things are so scary is because there is electronics inside here, okay? And the slide reciprocation of a handgun is aggressive, okay? That forward-back motion, that blowback motion of taking a shot. Your red dot has to be able to handle that. Now, I've put, like I said, little over 1,200 rounds through this. I've adjusted the way I've shot. Sometimes I'd go to the range and I just rattle off some rounds. Other times I would, you know, in my testing, shoot it single round, trying to get as many different types of shooting methods as possible, trying to replicate every possible way I would be shooting should I need to shoot in a real life situation. Okay guys, so just some features and some things about the Mini Shot M-Spec that if you didn't watch my first review about this, I'll take you through it again. So it's got a 3 MOA dot, and that's basically a representation of how big the dot is under ideal light circumstances. That will change depending on how much light or lack of light is being used and the intensity of your red dot. It has a 12-hour auto shut off, which means if you don't press one of these buttons for 12 hours, it will shut off by itself. Very important to remember that it is dust and waterproof 100%. I think waterproof is down to 1 meter. As I said already, it's got that steel and aluminium frame and housing and shroud situation going on. The battery life, that's another thing we have to talk about. So on an average setting, like 5 out of the 10 brightness settings, you can get apparently up to 50,000 hours. Now, a good deal is to just replace it at a rememberable date. So for example, the day you put the battery in, set a reminder on your phone or calendar to buy a battery 1 year later. If you replace it once every year, you are going to be good to go. The battery, by the way, goes in over there. As you can see, I've opened mine up, but I'll show you why a little later on. Coincidentally, you can over tighten this guy. It doesn't cause damage, but you want to tighten it to a point where that plus sign looks like a plus sign, effectively. So that's the ideal settings. And then obviously, as mentioned, you've got your elevation and windage adjustment over there. It takes a CR1632 battery, which goes, like I said, right in there. And then you got your 2 screws over there, which screw your dot onto the top of your pistol. The lens on this guy is also highly scratch resistant. So you'll see some of the things I've done with this red dot as the video goes on, and there's literally not a single scratch on it as far as I can see when I look through it. So I don't think getting it scratched is going to be a big deal. The reasons for getting a red dot, as I explained earlier, the killer, the winner is thread focusing. If you haven't done this before, let me show you sort of what it looks like. So I'm going to put in a bit of B-roll, and as you can see in the beginning, I am thread focusing. I'm focusing on that board, and that dot is nice and crisp and clear. Now I am using studio lights, which create a bit more reflection than usual, but as you can see, it's perfectly clear as to where that dot's going to go. Now if I start bringing the focusing towards us again, you'll then see how that dot expands, and to my eye as I'm looking at it, it's even more washed out than what you can see it. That is the difference between thread focusing versus traditional iron sight focusing, shall I say. And it does take time to unlearn your iron sight focusing, but once you've unlearned it, it's such a game changer. Now in terms of ruggedness, okay, this thing has to be able to take a beating, obviously, and one of the more popular tests is what's called the one-handed manipulation test. Now, as I've said previously, and as you've seen the video pop up of my first impressions review, I did jam this thing into a couple of counters, but I thought I would continue to do it, and especially for this video, do it again at a different range. So let's have a look at what's considered one-handed manipulation. Okay guys, so one of the most dreaded tests for red dots is the one-handed manipulation. I'm not going to shoot one-handedly, that's a different test. Now I am about 20 meters away from the target, so understand we are at the further distances of I would say self-defense shooting range, but obviously that is subjective. So let's see what we're going to do. Pulled that one. Okay, let's go have a look. So I know I pulled two. That's my bad. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 at 20 meters, and that is with an example of one-handed manipulation. Now, I don't recommend you manipulate your red dot like that. Okay, there are other surfaces you can rack your slide, or for example, if you are out of ammo and you can only use one hand, there's always your belt that you can do it off. But if in the heat of the moment you've got to jam your firearm against a solid piece of wall or plank, whatever the case may be, you need to know that your red dot's going to be able to handle that and maintain zero. I've done that, I would say, a total of about 50 times in the life cycle of this particular red dot. At City Guns and here at Shukakai. Well, I'm just doing it now at Shukakai. So I'm satisfied at this point that manipulating the firearm like that is not going to cause a loss of zero. What it will cause is a loss of skin. So yeah, that's the suffering I go through for you guys. I hope you appreciate it. But we'll keep going. Now, like I said, I don't advocate using your dot as a tool to rack your slide off of, but it is way more easier to rack it off a dot than it is to do off your standard height sights from Glock. Now we do come to the dreaded drop test, and what I want you guys to remember is throughout this video, this is a test of the Sightmark Mini Shot M-Spec. I'm not guaranteeing that every test should be done like this. I'm not advocating, shall I say, that every test should be done like this. But we are currently talking about the Mini Shot M-Spec. And there's a very popular YouTube channel, Sage Dynamics, which I follow, and I think they are one of the best gear testing channels I've seen out there. They have sort of brought in this drop test where the dot gets dropped onto a concrete surface, right? Dot first, effectively like this, with the purpose of having the entire firearm land on the dot. Now, a lot of people don't agree with that test, saying, well, they will never drop their firearm. I do agree and I don't agree, okay? I do agree in that no one purposefully drops their firearm. Who does that? However, in thinking about it, you know, I started considering, what if I'm in a life and death situation and I do get shot or something happens and I do drop my firearm? Now, dropping it from shoulder height makes sense, because guess where the firearm is going to be if I'm taking a shot? Shoulder height. I, however, did not want to do it as deliberately as some of the other tests. So what I decided to do was I had someone else load some rounds. I was at the shooting range and they loaded a few rounds, and I would shoot and move until the firearm was empty. And when it went click, I would drop it. Okay. Basically, that meant I couldn't tell where I was going to be when it went click. And more importantly, I couldn't tell when it was going to go click. And I would drop it from a shooting position. Let's have a look at that quickly. That is my last 5. I'm happy with that. So as you can see, the Sightmark Mini Shot M-Spec survived the drop test. Now, I didn't drop it on concrete. I didn't have concrete available to me at that range. So that is what it is. But a shoulder height drop test on a fairly solid surface did not cause me to lose zero. Now, Sightmark are going to send me another red dot for me to drop directly onto concrete. And for those of you who think that that is the only test of a red dot, let me run you through the list of red dots to fail the on-concrete drop test. The SIG Romeo 1 failed. When I say fail, I mean there was some kind of glass or structural damage, i.e. the sight was not as functional as it should be out of the box. I'm not talking about cosmetic damage, that's irrelevant. The Shield RMS failed. The Holosun 507C failed. The Leopold Delta Point Pro failed. The Aimpoint Acro failed. The Trigicon SRO failed. The Trigicon SRO actually failed quite catastrophically. The only red dot to survive a drop test that I've seen so far is the Trigicon RMR. Now, the reason for that is less to do with the materials used and the shape of that curved top section of the RMR, which means the only points to impact the ground are the two sort of ears of it, which allows for energy dispersion. A curved window on top like this means that if it hits over here, it's going to send the shock waves through the glass, right? Now, there's a reason I think the Sightmark Mini Shot M-Spec will fail, and there's a reason I think it will succeed at the on-concrete dot first drop test. I think it'll fail because of the shape of the glass. It's curved, like all those other red dots were. I think it'll succeed because I think it's the only one that has a hard metal and a soft metal. So Sightmark have said they're going to send me one of those dots, and I'm going to drop it on concrete, and we'll see. At this point, I don't even know if it's going to survive. But if I look at the list of dots that haven't survived, that's a fairly distinguished list of dots from companies that are fairly distinguished. How true is that test? Well, if you believe that Leopold and Aimpoint know what they're doing, then you got to say, well, that test doesn't make sense. But there is validity to dropping a firearm from shoulder height, because if something happens to you while you're in a gunfight, chances are, and you do drop it, it's going to be from shoulder height. So we'll cross that bridge when we get there, but onto a surface slightly less harder than concrete and dropping from shoulder height. As you saw in the video, the Sightmark survived and held 0. So guys, there is one other test I wanted to try. As you can see, I've done quite a few accuracy tests where I effectively shoot and I increase the distance, and I'm able to achieve an acceptable level of accuracy. While that's fine, I always wondered what happens if a catastrophic failure of my dot happens, meaning the battery pops out. As far as I know, there aren't any sights that can survive that and maintain 0, so I thought I'd give it a try. So have a look at this quickly. So after that test, I then did this test. And effectively what we're seeing is that even though the battery was removed from the Sightmark Mini Shot M-Spec, once I replaced it, it had gone back to its original 0. Now, I can only assume that that means the zeroing things inside here are mechanical and not electronic in nature. For example, maybe a screw of some sort, moving the dot around. And so even though you take the battery out, those screws are still positioned in a way that keeps the light emitting diode pointing in a specific direction. I don't know. I'm not going to take it apart because I don't know how to put it back together. But what I can tell you is you can take the battery out of your M-Spec, put it back in, and your 0 is going to be maintained, which is quite amazing actually. I don't know of any other red dot that does that. If you do, let me know. So guys, the Sightmark Mini Shot M-Spec, let's conclude on the actual hardware we're using. I'm very impressed. Like, it's the only dot that I've had on my pistol, and I'm sure there are other dots that do what this does, but there aren't many that do it for the price of this. In terms of value for money, this is exceptional value for money. You're looking at around 5,300 bucks for this guy. A Trigicon RMR, you're looking at around 12 grand. Okay, you can buy yourself a new firearm. Now, the Trigicon has the pedigree. Okay, so that's fair. You know, it worked hard, and it's a very well-built, highly respected red dot. So they've got the pedigree, so they can charge what they want, and I've got no problem with that. Okay, but as far as what I've seen so far, there's no difference in terms of what this does and what any other red dot does. It's not lost 0 at all through any of my testing. I've zeroed this once, and in 1,200 rounds of shooting, I've not zeroed it again. So from the very first shot you saw to right to the end, the accuracy has remained constant. That's a testament to the dot. Like I said, my shooting ability has, needs some help. I'm not the world's best shooter. I don't advocate to be. A red dot that can hold its 0 through that testing, I don't know what more people would want to be done to a red dot besides dropping it on concrete. Now I am going to do another review at 2,000 rounds. So we'll see from there. Hopefully by then I would have been able to drop the M-Spec on concrete and see what happens. Do I recommend the Mini Shot M-Spec? I never recommend anything, but as far as what this reviewer is concerned, as you can see, I'm carrying it on my self-defense pistol. it has not given me any reason to be concerned. I do also want to say thank you to the guys at Jonker and Sons in Cape Town for making this custom mount for me so I can mount pretty much any red dot on here. I really appreciate it. And respect to them, their mount held up to all that testing. You know, so that's another thing. You know, get reputable people to mount this thing for you because, yeah, it's a very important piece of kit. So a big thanks to the guys at Sightmark. A big thanks to Jean at Sightmark for hooking me up and being tremendous support for the channel. I like Sightmark because they've invested in the country. They are here. You can get pretty much any product within a few days. It's not a case of order today, get it 3 months when it comes from America, Germany, whatever the case may be. And I see value in it. Sightmark also, as I've mentioned many times before, they are the only company who've said to me, you can test our dot or our gear, and if it fails, you can review it anyway. You know, that suggests that these people are confident in the product. They are humble, which I really appreciate because humility is a massive deal here. You've got to be willing to learn all the time or you quickly become obsolete. The Sightmark Mini Shot M-Spec, as well as a review of red dots as a whole. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you have any questions, give me a shout. If you want to see me do more things, if there's anything in particular you'd like me to do that I haven't done to this dot, let me know. Guys, I know what you're wondering. Yes, this is my everyday carry setup. I'm going to be talking holsters soon that cater for all of this hotness. So we're going to get to that soon. Massive thanks to the guys at Sightmark. Thank you to you guys for supporting the channel. If there's something you like, leave a like, leave a comment, subscribe. That really helps out. I also want to make more videos like this. Have a good week, guys. Stay safe. I'll see you guys soon for another review. Cheers. God bless.